Have you ever found yourself in a lavish office, listening to a boss eloquently drone on about flowery visions of the future and noble missions, only for a chilling truth to suddenly strike you? This person, in reality, is terrifyingly empty. This is by no means a simple mistake. Rather, it's a harsh rule at play. For generations, we've always believed that every organization is founded with the purpose of recruiting the most exceptional talents. Yet, a harsh truth lies hidden. From the tech empires in Silicon Valley to the most powerful regimes throughout history, a hidden algorithm has quietly operated, constantly weeding out sharp minds and propelling fools to the pinnacle of power. Welcome to a deep dive into the architecture of incompetence. Today, we won't delve into individual missteps. Instead, we will unveil the profound reasons why the system itself craves incompetence to sustain its existence. 2,400 years ago, the great philosopher Plato prophesied the tragedy humanity would face. In his masterpiece, The Republic, he depicted a ship where the true captain, one who mastered astronomy and ocean currents, was labeled a useless eccentric. Meanwhile, the demagogic sailors used wine and narcotics to incapacitate the skilled captain, turning the ship into an unrestrained revelry on its journey straight into the abyss. So why do the masses favor choosing the incompetent? Because the incompetent offer something that the talented cannot promise, a perfect illusion of certainty. Sometimes it's not true intelligence that leads to the pinnacle of power. Rather, it's the perfect illusion of that intelligence. And once you grasp this dark underlying mechanism, you will forever change how you perceive leaders and the world itself. In the storm of uncertainty, true intelligence often speaks with humility. I need to research more to gain a comprehensive understanding. But the incompetent, with blind confidence, will assert emphatically, I know the way out for sure. The masses, in moments of extreme panic, do not seek a scientist with complex analyses. They crave a savior, even if it's just a false prophet wearing a mask. In the early 16th century, amidst the chaotic power struggles of Renaissance Italy, a figure named Niccolo Machiavelli was unexpectedly pushed out of the field he was most passionate about: politics. Once a brilliant and respected diplomat of Florence, Machiavelli's fate abruptly turned when a new ruling power seized control. Accused of conspiracy, he endured imprisonment and brutal torture before being exiled to the remote countryside. Stripped of all influence, purpose, and dignity, it was in this harsh, forced isolation that Machiavelli began to write. A fateful masterpiece would forever etch his name into history: The Prince. In stark contrast to his contemporary thinkers, who were lost in dreams of ideal societies and virtuous leaders, Machiavelli bluntly tore through all illusions. He did not outline how rulers should behave. Instead, he exposed how they actually operate. When discussing power, his philosophy emerges as chillingly ruthless, unsettling, and full of thought-provoking truths. Morality is merely an option, and often, appearances carry more weight than naked truth. At the core of his thought was a harsh reality, an observation that still haunts and echoes through centuries. Everyone sees only your outer shell. Very few have the chance to understand the real person inside. Frankly speaking, perception is ultimate power. Reality is merely a secondary factor. Machiavelli deeply understood that human nature does not crave truth. Rather, it readily believes what is presented. People do not choose leaders based on profound moral qualities or genuine intellect. Instead, they are drawn to those who exude confidence, display power, and project absolute certainty, even if it's all an elaborately staged performance. This ancient warning exposed a fundamental flaw in the very foundation of leadership, a fatal weakness that manipulators, demagogues, and even charismatic fools have thoroughly exploited for generations. It's not the most talented who reach the top. Rather, it's those who master the art of displaying competence. When you observe contemporary political figures, powerful CEOs, or social media icons who captivate millions despite their limited actual abilities, you are directly witnessing Machiavelli's prophecy come true. Appearance overshadows substance. Demeanor defeats intellect. Confidence completely masks competence. Machiavelli saw this truth 500 years ago, and to this day, we still live in a world that chillingly proves him right. More than ever, it's easy to believe that intelligence naturally leads to leadership, that the most erudite and profound minds will inevitably rise, guiding society toward a brighter future. Yet Machiavelli and the very course of history reveal a much harsher truth. In the fierce arena of power, intelligence sometimes becomes a curse rather than a blessing. The core qualities that make a truly wise leader, deep thought, self-awareness, and moral subtlety, are precisely the weaknesses that make them vulnerable in a ruthless, unforgiving environment. The world often celebrates unquestioning boldness, crude assertiveness, and oversimplification, while an erudite mind meticulously weighs all consequences, grapples with ethical dilemmas, and understands the inherent complexity of every situation. True intelligence often leads to hesitation. It compels leaders to pause, reflect thoroughly, and humbly acknowledge the limits of their own knowledge. However, in a world where assertiveness is often mistaken for confidence, caution, and hesitation are invariably perceived as weaknesses. No example illustrates this paradox more clearly and tragically than the story of Socrates. Socrates, arguably one of the greatest minds in human history, steadfastly pursued a life full of questions, a relentless journey of self-inquiry. He made the immortal declaration, "I know only one thing, and that is that I know nothing," thereby profoundly recognizing the vast ocean of human ignorance. Yet, despite his superior intellect, Socrates was not celebrated as a leader. Instead, he was condemned, accused of corrupting the youth, and ultimately sentenced to death by the very democracy he sought to enlighten. Contrast this with the populist figures who have emerged throughout history. They did not gain power by presenting complex truths, but by offering simple, absolute answers to a confused and fearful public. While Socrates sowed doubt, populists dispense certainty. Where humble intelligence admits, "I might be wrong," ignorance shouts, "Only I am right." This situation is truly alarming. In the battle for influence, individuals who project unwavering confidence, even if lacking substance, often prevail over those who humbly acknowledge the complexity of reality. This has been corroborated by scientific studies. A controversial research paper published in the Journal of Applied Psychology indicated that intelligence has a positive correlation with leadership effectiveness, but only up to a certain limit. Do you mistakenly believe that a higher IQ makes it easier to become an excellent leader? Absolutely wrong. John Antonakis' research revealed a harsh truth. When your IQ surpasses 128, leadership effectiveness in the eyes of subordinates begins to decline significantly. What's the reason? It's because the cognitive gap becomes too wide. You are too intelligent to simplify everything effectively. You see 10 steps ahead while your subordinates can only envision one. And the inevitable consequence is that you are labeled an eccentric. Such individuals may be seen as aloof, incomprehensible, or completely out of touch, even when their analyses are perfectly accurate. Conversely, incompetent individuals with average IQs easily win over the crowd. They communicate using the same mundane language that the majority employs. When these individuals ascend to positions of power, a dark defense mechanism of the dark triad emerges. A fear of intellect takes hold, prompting them to construct a fortress of mediocrity, deliberately recruiting those less capable. This is no longer leadership, but a ruthless purge of genuine competence. From a psychological perspective, the explanation appears stark, chillingly simple. Human nature at its core is inherently averse to deep thought. Our brain structure is fundamentally wired to crave simplicity over complexity, clarity over ambiguity, and definitive answers over nuanced shades of gray. Faced with intricate truths that demand considerable effort to comprehend, the majority instinctively gravitate towards leaders who offer sweet, comforting, and reassuring illusions. This is why, in moments of extreme crisis, humanity rarely seeks out the philosopher king, who is always cautious with probabilities and speaks with careful deliberation. Instead, they are drawn to the loudest voice, the one who promises instant salvation with a single decisive blow. It's not that intelligence plays no role in leadership. Rather, true intellect, the capacity for deep introspection and self-criticism, often struggles to survive the brutal, primal selection mechanisms where power is contested. As Machiavelli profoundly understood, what elevates you is not the depth of your actual knowledge, but how confidently you can sell the illusion of understanding to others. If intellect and wisdom are not the keys to holding power, then what truly possesses that strength? The answer, both terrifying and surprisingly simple, is confidence, even if it's not based on any real foundation. In 1999, two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, published groundbreaking research that exposed an alarming flaw in human perception. Paradoxically, the less people know about a subject, the more confident they are that they are experts in that field. This psychological phenomenon, now widely known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, demonstrated that incompetence not only leads to errors but is also the source of blind, excessive self-confidence. Simply put, the less knowledge one possesses, the less capable they are of recognizing their own lack of understanding. They lack the very basic skills to identify the gaps in their own knowledge, and as a result, they inadvertently construct a facade of false confidence. In a world where certainty is often equated with confidence, this illusion can be terrifyingly effective. Truly capable individuals frequently doubt themselves. They recognize the vastness of what they don't yet understand. They hesitate, they question. Conversely, the incompetent boldly forge ahead with absolute self-assurance, and the crowd blindly follows. As Shakespeare once concluded, centuries before Dunning and Kruger gave this phenomenon a scientific name, "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." In the arduous race for leadership, victory doesn't belong to the most brilliant mind, but often to the one with the most unwavering belief in themselves. Let's look at the case of Adam Neumann, the charismatic founder of WeWork, who rose like a phenomenon. Although his empire was built on a business model riddled with flaws, Neumann captivated investors, employees, and the media alike, all thanks to his unwavering vision and absolute self-confidence. Neumann painted a picture of revolutionizing not just workspaces but also the way people interact and exist. With a resolute tone, he skillfully crafted the image of a visionary genius, a harbinger of inevitable change. Billions of dollars were poured into WeWork, solely based on the power of the vision he outlined. However, beneath the glamorous facade, the business model harbored fatal flaws, and eventually, the harsh truth could no longer be concealed. Overnight, WeWork's valuation evaporated, starkly exposing the terrifying gap between blind confidence and actual competence. What's remarkable is that for many years, Neumann's excessive self-confidence was not only accepted, but celebrated as an admirable quality. That illusion was incredibly powerful, strong enough to make even seasoned investors and experienced analysts completely ignore the clear warning signs that were present. What history has repeatedly shown is now clearly substantiated by scientific research. A prime example is a 2020 study, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. This study revealed a startling truth. Individuals who display superior confidence, regardless of their actual competence, tend to be perceived and celebrated by their peers as leaders. Groups often favor and promote individuals who exhibit absolute certainty, even when that conviction has no basis in reality. The reason for this phenomenon lies in a deep-seated human instinct. We constantly crave clarity and a clear direction, especially when faced with complex or risky situations. A foolish but confident person can sometimes be far more appealing than a hesitant genius, simply because certainty, even if an illusion, provides the sense of security that humans constantly seek. This psychological mechanism doesn't merely govern leadership. It's also a core factor determining our survival. In early times, placing trust in and following a confident leader could be the thin line between life and death. Our ancestors' brains were forged in a harsh environment where swift, decisive action often provided a superior survival advantage over slow, cumbersome deliberation. Yet in the context of the modern world, filled with complex systems, intricate problems, and pivotal decisions, that very primal instinct transforms into a perilous vulnerability. We frequently err by equating a loud voice with profound wisdom. We mistake recklessness for exceptional talent. And as Machiavelli once warned, those who understand this inherent weakness, those skilled in the art of creating an illusion of competence, can ascend to the top far more quickly than the humble individuals who bear the burden of genuine knowledge. Once firmly established at the pinnacle of power, incompetent rulers rarely relinquish their thrones voluntarily. They understand, whether instinctively or through strategic calculation, that their survival depends not on gathering the most talented individuals, but on surrounding themselves with those who are absolutely loyal and pose the least threat. Machiavelli, a great master with a profound and sharp insight into the complex nature of humanity, foresaw this centuries ago, vividly depicting it in his masterpiece, The Prince. His advice to rulers was to be extremely cautious in choosing advisors, prioritizing not exceptional talent or intellect, but absolute loyalty and unconditional subservience. According to his writings, the first and most crucial measure of a leader's wisdom is the quality of the individuals who surround them. So what happens when an incompetent person ascends to the pinnacle of a power system? They don't seek out confident individuals. Instead, they recruit those who are merely subservient. They build a formidable fortress of mediocrity around themselves, ensuring that no one is astute, courageous, or intelligent enough to challenge their authority. This is the genesis of institutionalized incompetence, a creeping, toxic disease that erodes excellence from the top down. The fall of the Roman Empire stands as a chilling, vivid testament to this harsh rule. Emperor Commodus, successor to the great Marcus Aurelius, ruthlessly purged talented administrators, replacing them with a throng of sycophants and entertainers, the only ones who would utter the sweet nothings he craved to hear. The consequences were horrific: an irredeemable political decay, a complete economic collapse, and ultimately the disintegration of one of humanity's most glorious civilizations. In the currents of modern history, Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe's reign did not escape a similar fateful spiral. Brilliant economists, fair judges, and talented civil servants were mercilessly purged, making way for a cadre of blindly loyal individuals whose sole criterion for survival was absolute personal allegiance, not any professional competence. The immediate consequences were irreversible economic devastation and a political system rotten to its core. Even in the fiercely competitive modern business world, these detrimental patterns continue to recur alarmingly. Some CEOs, instead of recruiting the most brilliant minds, deliberately build executive teams from those who merely obey, blindly echoing their views without question. This leads to the creation of colossal corporations that collapse disastrously under the weight of their own misguided decisions. A psychological perspective. Psychological science reveals a chilling insight into the root of this phenomenon. The key factor is homophily, the natural human tendency to associate with and surround oneself with individuals who share similar thoughts and characteristics. Incompetent leaders often find greater safety and comfort when surrounded by people who think and act like them. Conversely, intelligent subordinates with sharp critical thinking skills make them feel exposed in their weaknesses, reveal their incompetence, and constantly pose a threat to their position. This phenomenon is closely linked to the confidence threat theory, a perspective suggesting that leaders lacking self-confidence often view highly competent and confident individuals as an existential threat, directly jeopardizing their power and status. Instead of valuing and nurturing talent, they instinctively seek to suppress or even eliminate it, pushing away individuals who might one day excel or dare to challenge their authority. Gradually, the result is the formation of isolated groups, islands of incompetence, where all innovative thinking is stifled and only mediocrity is celebrated. What's even more frightening is that once these distorted structures take root, they become self-perpetuating, creating a vicious cycle with no escape. Ironically, incompetent leaders tend to promote those even less capable than themselves, pushing the organization into a deep decline. A cascade of erroneous decisions accumulates, propelling the entire system, from organizations and governments to society itself, into a spiral of decay. Notably, this collapse doesn't stem from external enemies, but from a slow, internal rot originating from the very pinnacles of power. This cruel dynamic was understood by Machiavelli centuries ago. Today, we are merely witnessing different, more sophisticated versions of the same tragedy. When confronted with chaos and pervasive fear, the human mind, by primal instinct, seeks one thing to cling to: absolute certainty. Our brains, products of millions of years of harsh evolution, are not programmed to calmly confront or analyze the overwhelming complexities of reality. Their ultimate purpose is survival. And when survival is threatened, whether by devastating wars, brutal economic crises, or existential challenges like climate change, the instinctive mind immediately reverts to the simplest solutions. Only clear, unambiguous answers. This craving for certainty is not just a minor flaw. It is a profound Achilles heel, a fatal weakness that brilliant leaders and cunning manipulators alike have relentlessly exploited whenever fear takes hold. People don't seek out the most erudite voice in the crowd. They are drawn to the tone that offers the clearest, most confident answers, regardless of whether those answers might be disastrously wrong. Let's look at a prime example: the communication surrounding climate change. Genuine climate scientists who have delved deep into data and understand the inherent uncertainties of science often speak with great caution. It's highly probable. Many models indicate complex trade-offs are involved. Their phrasing is a testament to intellectual honesty. It frankly acknowledges the intricate complexity of planetary systems, the inherent unpredictability in all forecasts, and the immense challenges in finding solutions. Ironically, this very valuable honesty can become a serious political burden, even a disaster. In stark contrast, populist figures frequently simplify climate issues into absolute black-and-white statements. It's all a hoax, nothing to worry about. Technology will automatically solve everything without requiring any sacrifices. Such messages provide immediate emotional gratification. They create an illusion of certainty, an easy escape from pervasive fear. For this reason, despite being hollow in content, simply told stories often gain trust far more easily than complex, multifaceted truths. A harsh truth few wish to admit is this: when faced with complexity, the majority do not crave a truthful answer, but merely a comfortable, mind-soothing explanation. Surprisingly, even among the elite, those supposedly most educated, the preference for simplicity persists. To illustrate this, an illuminating experiment was conducted at the prestigious Yale University. A shocking study revealed that, when confronted with complex mathematical data concerning politics, our ability to accurately decode information is cruelly distorted by deeply ingrained political biases. What's even more astonishing is that the most brilliant mathematical minds exhibited this bias most clearly and strongly. An incredible paradox. Instead of using their intellect to seek truth, they transform it into a sharp tool to rationalize, to reinforce what their emotions tell them they want to believe, regardless of the facts. This discovery strikes a powerful blow against the sweet illusion we've long cherished, that the smarter one is, the sharper their judgment. The harsh truth is, not at all. Without emotional discipline, even the greatest minds can become enslaved, turning into sophisticated tools to justify conclusions already swayed by deep-seated biases. To put it more bluntly, in the desperate search for certainty, intelligence ceases to be the guardian of truth and transforms into the loyal servant of emotion. The allure of simple, easy-to-understand answers is precisely the gateway to dangerous black-and-white binary thinking, a cognitive shortcut that can destroy everything. Leaders who dare to declare, "I can fix everything with absolute solutions," will wield immense psychological power, manipulating lost and fearful souls. The deeper the world sinks into complexity, the more desperately people crave simplicity. And that's when they become easy prey for charismatic demagogues, those who promise clarity, no matter how far removed from reality that promise may be. Machiavelli, the master of power, understood a harsh truth. Perception, not truth, is the ultimate arbiter of all games. And what's terrifying is that modern psychology has simply delved deeper into and reconfirmed that cruel truth at a more sophisticated, more frightening level. In a world overflowing with complexity, the loudest, simplest, and most confident voice will always win. Not because it's right, but because it offers a comfort, a psychological release that people crave. As long as we don't dare to confront and recognize this fatal flaw within ourselves, we will forever be easy prey for those who skillfully exploit it. If perception always triumphs over reality in the brutal race for power, then morality, what we call true morality, becomes nothing more than a burden. Machiavelli, with his cold vision, deeply grasped this harsh truth. In one of the most infamous maxims from his masterpiece, The Prince, he bluntly declared, "A prince who wishes to maintain his power must learn how not to be good." He wasn't advocating absolute cruelty. Rather, it was a chilling warning. Those who cling too rigidly to ideals of honesty, fairness, and virtue will surely fail against those willing to break all rules when circumstances demand it. In the brutal arena of power dynamics, leaders who cling to morality are tying their own hands, putting themselves at a disadvantage. Their unwavering commitment to noble principles inadvertently narrows their options, creating fatal vulnerabilities that ruthless adversaries will not hesitate to exploit fully. To illustrate this, let's look at the stark contrast between Cicero and Julius Caesar in ancient Roman history. Cicero, a master orator and steadfast defender of republican values, placed firm faith in the rule of law, the power of logical argument, and an incorruptible administration. He harbored a fragile hope that only enlightened reason and noble virtue could preserve the Roman Republic. Caesar, in contrast, viewed power through a Machiavellian pragmatic lens. He did not hesitate to break all taboos, forge brutal alliances, and seize power at any cost, culminating in his crossing of the Rubicon with his army, an undeniable public declaration of rebellion. Cicero's tragic fate. He was assassinated by political rivals, a grim end after all his efforts to save the Republic proved futile. Caesar, on the other hand, held absolute power as dictator for life, until he too faced the assassin's blade. Centuries after Rome was permanently reshaped, a harsh but obvious lesson emerged. In a world where the strong dominate, the meek are simply devoured, never celebrated. And surprisingly, that brutal pattern is clearly replayed in the modern corporate environment. A study from the University of British Columbia revealed an alarming reality. Individuals exhibiting psychopathic traits such as a lack of empathy, superficial charm, and masterful manipulation skills disproportionately occupy senior leadership positions. It is this cold ruthlessness that enables them to make decisive choices, unhindered by empathy or any moral hesitation. Meanwhile, ethically minded managers, those who constantly ponder fairness, long-term consequences, and employee well-being, are often marginalized, bypassed, or completely burned out. These are not isolated anecdotes. Rather, they are an inevitable consequence, which game theorists call the race to the bottom. When an individual chooses a ruthless approach and succeeds, others feel compelled to adopt similar strategies just to survive. Gradually, moral barriers erode, not because good people disappear, but because the system itself favors and rewards those willing to transgress all ethical boundaries. Consequently, morality suddenly becomes a fatal weakness, not due to its inherent nature, but because the fierce competitive environment punishes those who adhere to it. While it's easy to despair in the face of this grim dynamic, understanding it does not mean we must abandon our ethical principles. It means recognizing that power structures often tend to favor those unconstrained by any moral limits, and from there, if possible, building systems that no longer reward unethical behavior. Machiavelli did not glorify cruelty. He merely exposed a stark truth that civilized society often deliberately avoids. Pure goodness is rarely the decisive factor in strategic games. To survive and lead, resilience coupled with sometimes difficult compromises is indispensable. Meanwhile, personal traits like absolute confidence or even ruthlessness play a crucial role in determining who rises to the pinnacle of power. Ultimately, it is the systems themselves that will determine whether true competence is fostered or mediocrity proliferates. In a system where feedback loops are strong and transparency is paramount, all weaknesses will be exposed without mercy. Mistakes will lead to immediate and evident consequences. Failure cannot hide behind empty justifications or cleverly constructed narratives. Imagine, in life-or-death fields like surgery or engineering, where a minor error can lead to instant fatal outcomes, only truly talented individuals can endure and rise to the top. A surgeon with an ever-growing list of deceased patients cannot use a glamorous facade to conceal the truth. A civil engineer whose design structures constantly collapse will not be able to continue deceiving the public to maintain their trust. Now contrast this with political and financial systems, where accountability is often neglected and outcomes are vague, unpredictable. The collapse of the Soviet Union is a powerful testament to how centralized power, combined with opaque decision-making, allowed severe incompetence to run rampant and become deeply entrenched for decades. Officials, shielded from any real consequences, consistently made disastrous decisions without correction until the entire system buckled under the weight of its accumulated errors and ultimately collapsed. Similarly, the 2008 financial crisis exposed a harsh truth. Financial leaders, driven by immediate profit rather than long-term stability, made extremely reckless bets with no fear of immediate accountability. And when that system finally gave way, devastating consequences spread globally. In both examples, the underlying structures fostered unchecked incompetence. Conversely, truly capable systems always uphold and reward integrity. While transparency and tangible results are the true measures of competence, corrupt systems only reward blind loyalty, superficial appearances, and fleeting victories. Machiavelli deeply understood that human nature inherently seems to harbor the potential for corruption. Modern society must clearly recognize that only meticulously designed and robust systems can consistently filter and select truly talented individuals. And without such systems, the incompetent and ignorant will always find a way to climb to the pinnacle of power. Power, ironically, doesn't always belong to the wisest. It often falls into the hands of those bold enough to weave the most captivating illusions and ruthless enough to protect them at all costs. History doesn't just honor intellect. It favors certainty, simplicity, and self-confidence, even when these qualities merely mask profound incompetence. In a world where appearances are easily mistaken for truth, your ultimate defense is not blind faith, but sharp, critical thinking. Never let false certainty enchant you. Always question what appears on the surface, and dig deeper to find the truth. Machiavelli revealed a harsh truth to us. This game has never been fair, but understanding its rules will completely change the dynamic. Understanding the nature of the game doesn't dispel the darkness that envelops the world, but it serves as a solid shield, protecting you from all deceptive schemes. And sometimes, amidst a world brimming with captivating illusions, that very lucidity is the first brick, laying the foundation for true power. Will you be content to be a wise person hidden in the shadows? Or will you be brave enough to raise your voice in question, even when confronting an entire system that actively glorifies ignorance? Don't hesitate to share your insightful perspectives in the comments below. Let's continue our journey of unveiling hidden truths together. To not miss any analysis in this labyrinth of illusions, please like and subscribe to the channel. Farewell, and may you always keep the flame of an awakened mind burning bright.